And now we're back for another episode of the official Big Bang Theory podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Radloff, and I'm so thrilled to have you with us today. Our next guest today, I'm so happy to have because he was one of the most instrumental people that you could name in the entire run of the Big Bang Theory. He is the so-called resident director. How many episodes? I think 244?
Between 244 248, somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there. One of those numbers. Who's counting? We have the Emmy-nominated Mark Cendrowski. It is such a pleasure to have. Yes, Mark. Although you tell me to boo because everybody, when they announce your name
that goes
on set, you have to go boo.
Everyone boos. That's an old story that goes back many years. I think I remember where it started was on Yes, Dear, the show that I did.
Yeah.
I would do 3 episodes. I'd go away for 3 episodes, come back for 3 episodes, and they would reintroduce, a new member, all right, here's the cast this week, and then, let's welcome back Mark Cendrowski. Yeah, okay, we know who he is, and I would just start booing myself.
Oh my gosh.
And just boo, who cares? And then it picked up, and it went from there, and it's never stopped.
And I know this. I know to boo on tape nights. And I was just at Georgie and Mandy's first marriage the other month. And yet I still, because it's just in my nature to start clapping when I hear your name because you're so good. And I think it was you that turned to me actually and was like, no, what are you doing? Boo. And I'm like, oh God, whoops. Okay. Yeah. Never mind. Anyway, we are here to talk about episode 102, which is the first episode after the pilot episode. And what a lot of fans may not realize is that the second episode in a series might be even more important than the first at times because it really sets the tone. It's whether fans, if they come back, are they going to stay? Do they like what they see and what's going to happen? But you were not the director of the pilot. No. That was Jimmy Burrows, who we first had on in the last episode. Mm-hmm. Tell me, what do you remember about getting the call to come on and direct The Big Bang Theory? And at the time, was it just for this one episode?
Actually, that's a good question. I actually met with Chuck and Bill Prady. I forget how many weeks beforehand. I'd been on Chuck's radar because I was doing something else at Warner Brothers, I believe, when he was doing 2.5 Men. Right. And he had asked me to come in to do a block there, and I couldn't. I was scheduled on other shows, and I just couldn't work it out. So I knew I was on their radar, and I met with both of them. They had seen some of King of Queens that I had done and some other episodes of shows, maybe Yes, Dear. And they kind of liked my vision, liked, what they had saw, that the way I was able to hopefully dig out some of the comedy for them. And so met with them, and the nicest thing was we talked about how do you like to run a show? How do you, because I can do that. I like to be flexible. I don't have one way, and that's the only way. And then at the end of the interview, what was great is Bill Prady's from Detroit, also where I'm from, and he mentioned that, and I said, oh, you're a Tigers fan, right? And he goes, oh my God, of course I am. And then we went off on this tangent about the Tigers and baseball, and Chuck's sitting there looking at us going, the hell's going on here? And so I knew, it was like, okay, there's an instant bond there. And they asked me, and I think I was scheduled I did the first 3 episodes, and then there was the possibility of doing more beyond that. They'd used various directors in the first 7, I think, or 9. Something like that.
Ted Wass even came on, who played Mayim Bialik's dad on Blossom, which I thought was so funny because this was years before Mayim ever joined the show. But here was her dad directing an episode, basically. What was it like for you, though, to know you were following Jimmy Burrows?
Well, that's every director's dream and nightmare.
I was going to say a little bit of both.
It's your dream. It's in that, oh my God, I'm considered to continue on a show that he piloted and shepherded and started off, and then, but it's also the nightmare. It's, oh my God, I got to follow Jimmy Burrows. Yeah. Jimmy Stewart.
Well, he's like the Jimmy Stewart of, directing at that point.
And so it's sort of, it goes back to, I used to hang out with a lot of comics and write for comics and stuff, and it was that same thing of being at the Comedy Store and having to follow Robin Williams or Richard Pryor or you're like, oh, I just wanted to do a set, and you got people just standing ovations going on, and that's sort of what you feel like. And so you just dig in, hope you can do the
Right.
best job you can to be yourself, and that's sort of what I did. And in that first episode, what worked in my favor was actually in the beginning, the guys are taking the box up the stairs, and the writers had written a little montage piece of the guys at each floor, something happened. They didn't write out specifics, and so we created with Jim Parsons and Johnny and myself. We came up with something on each floor, something that would happen, where it fell back down, where it landed on their foot, where they couldn't turn it sideways, they needed to rest.
Yeah.
And we showed them all at run through, and they loved it. They were like, oh, this is fun. We ended up shooting like 3 of them and maybe used 1 or 2,
Okay.
I think, in the episode. But it was that creative thing that you want to do. It's like, yeah, here we go. Let's try and make this as funny as we can.
Did you contact Jimmy Burrows at all to just ask him for give me the inside scoop about this show?
I did not. I've done that. I've done that before on shows, where as a guest director, you're coming in, and whether it's the person who did the pilot or someone who'd been there that I know has done the previous couple of weeks, it's always nice to have a little bit of inside information. And what are these actors like? Are their tendencies? What's it like? To me, it would be like, well, what's it like working with Chuck? But we had already had that discussion. We had figured that out, and so I felt pretty comfortable with what we had to do.
So this episode 102 is called The Big Bran Hypothesis. It aired on October 1st, 2007, which is just crazy to think about.
Just yesterday.
Yeah, right? The log line is that Penny asked the guys to let in a delivery guy, but they discover something shocking when they enter her apartment. The reason that I chose this episode, and you just talked a little bit about it, but the reason I chose this episode for you was because of how physical the episode was. And so much of it is based on physical humor here. It's hard enough doing the stair scenes, which I want you to talk about in a second, but then add in a huge piece of equipment, a box, and I feel like it just ups the stakes so much more.
Yeah.
Tell our listeners how difficult those stair scenes were just without anything extra.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question, because people are always surprised on how did you do the stairs?
Yeah.
Thinking, did you really have 4 floors?
Right.
People assume we had. And
Yeah.
that would be a little tough to do, and we just had the 1 floor. They had dug out the basement, the hole, as we called it, the downstairs part.
Yep.
And the set dressers, God love them, every time we changed a floor when we were shooting, because we did a lot of them in front of the audience, they were ready to go, changing the door, the signs on the doors, different kind of tape for each floor, maybe throwing a bike out there or a plant and things, and just to keep the flow going in front of an audience, because you didn't want to lose that momentum of one discussion of going up 3 flights of stairs. So the hard part was we would rehearse and pre-shoot things. And early on, it was something we discovered that, well, the laughs would sometimes be different than what we got in run through. The audience would sometimes go bigger, and you wouldn't be able to get that joke out before you turn the corner. And it was like, oh, okay, let's do it again. Let's slow down the pace. Now we know where this laugh is going to be a little bigger. And that was just something that we had to learn just by doing.
Yeah.
And, because you could pre-shoot it and get it the way you wanted it, and the audience would give it a completely different rhythm sometimes. And we would oftentimes, well, let's continue this on the next floor, continue this line, and do it that way.
Timing is hard enough in comedy.
Yes.
I mean, that's what it is. But then to have to really get it down to a split second for a turn on a landing.
Yeah, they'll let the laugh carry you around. And that was fun. And the actors were great at it too, because I would warn them. It was like, okay, look, we've been getting a good laugh here, and we got to keep the pace slow. But if they go bigger, you'll have to slow it down on the stairs itself. You know, it's not like I can come in and yell, cut, let's try it again.
Right.
And they were great at it. It took a little bit, but they got the hang of it. It was like, oh, that laugh was going, and you'd see them slow down and almost pause at the stairs and then continue on and get the joke out before turning the corner.
Thank God for your comedy background, because I feel like if someone didn't have that, they would not be able to know all the technical aspects of that.
Yeah, that's true. I know there were some directors that wouldn't. I mean, I love things like that with Chuck. Something we've always agreed on is like, it's okay to play a joke on someone's back. It's okay. And I've worked with other producers where I've tried to do that, where someone's walking out of a scene and we'll play it on their back. We know who it is. We hear them. And they were like, no, I can't see their face. I got to see their face. I got to see their face. And it was like, it's not as funny.
Yeah.
It's not as funny sometimes. Yeah. And Chuck was all for it. And I know there were some times where directors were like, oh, no, we'll just stop and say all the dialogue here on the landing. Right. It was like, no. You have to have a flow. And I enjoyed breaking up the writers would try and guess where, let's see, they should take that long, and they try and break up the speeches and where the jokes would land. And sometimes it was just nope, we're gonna have to shift this one to the next to the next floor and stuff. We think this is much funnier. So which they trusted and was fun to do. That was a little fun experiment every time.
Well, let's listen to one of these scenes, because this particular scene starts in the lobby, which is a set that is a whole other thing apart from the stairs. So you can watch it all in Max, but let's listen to that right now.
Okay. Her apartment's on the 4th floor, but the elevator's broken, so you're just gonna be done? Okay, cool, thanks. I guess we'll just bring it up ourselves.
I hardly think so.
Why not?
Well, we don't have a dolly or lifting belts or any measurable upper body strength.
We don't need strength. We're physicists. We are the intellectual descendants of Archimedes. Give me a fulcrum and a lever and I can move the earth. It's just a matter. I don't have this. I do not have this.
Archimedes would be so proud.
I just love that scene with Johnny.
He's so good. And we had to actually, you talk about that physical element, because I love the physical aspect of comedy and always trying to add a little something. And there it was great because we had to work out with the prop guys. We had to give it enough weight to be plausible for them, but not too much that they wouldn't be able to handle it.
Right. Yeah. What was in there? What was in that box?
I think they ended up using just maybe a couple pieces of plywood or pieces of wood.
Okay.
I don't think they used the real unit that was in there.
I mean, I wouldn't expect
maybe
that.
Part of it.
Yeah.
But it was a little experimentation. They had brought it out, and the size was perfect with what we needed to accomplish. But it was a matter of, all right, well, let's figure this out. And we tried one way, and it's like, for there, John, are you okay? We can't have this crush you.
Right.
That would not be good
right.
for the first episode.
No, you need your actor at least through episode 3.
Right. Right. At least while I'm there. When the next director comes in, then you can break your leg. Yeah. So that was fun to do. And then what I love too is what I realized in rewatching the episode, there's a shot looking down the stairs. And that's the only time I think that shot was ever used in all the 279 episodes that we did. Because that set, like most people don't realize, and once they came on stage, the lobby set was always separate from where the stairs were.
Right.
And we would have to leave the stairs and repo down to the lobby or vice versa. And just going up on those, just for the one shot of them looking up, I think it was the only time we did that.
I think so too, because when I was rewatching it, I noticed the same thing. And I was wondering, how did you guys do that? Because there was really a wall there. Was it you or just a camera guy?
No, we went up. We actually, the set, I believe, we took the back of the set off.
Okay.
And we're able to put a camera up there. We took a camera around the back, hoist it, raise it up enough to give us the right angle to look down. We had to make sure, because we didn't want to have a fourth wall put in.
Yeah.
And just made sure the angle was steep enough so all you're seeing was floor.
You were talking about the different ideas you had for the scenes on the stairs with Jim and Johnny and different things to do. And one of the scenes that I love as the guys are trying to get this box up the stairs is when they kind of get it to the landing, and then it slides
Yeah.
down. And I always wanted to ask you, how did you make that work so seamlessly? Because there wasn't a lot of room, and you
No.
had to really make it seem like this box just went sliding down
Right.
and could have crushed one of them.
Right.
How did you do that one?
It was well. Again, that goes to what we were talking about: the right weight on the
Box.
prop, so
Yes.
it's heavy enough to be able to move, not too heavy not too heavy that it would crush somebody that's down there. And it was really what was fun. These actors, all of them loved working,
Yeah.
and so that first day was we played. And we experimented with the weight of the box and got different things, and it's like, well, what else could we do? And one of the inspirations for that was actually from an old Mel Brooks film, Ron Carey, I think it was, which film was it? But he was always, I got it, and he'd go to pick up a trunk, I got it, I ain't got it,
No.
and put it back down, and that was, well, we can do something similar to that, or we
Right.
could do a where you are both running into the wall. That was always how we got one of them, which I don't think we ended up using in the show, but pushing, one guy pulling and getting stuck against the wall and not being able, and Jim then not being able to be strong enough to pull it away.
Right.
And it was just, they loved working. And
Yeah.
so it was like, yeah, let's play, let's experiment. And like I say, we probably came up with 5 or 6 different things, something to do on each floor,
Yeah.
or on the stairs, and then we did them all for run through,
Right.
and they were like, oh, we like this, we'll do this one, we'll do that one, maybe not that one, and we shot 3 or 4, and then they used 1 or 2. So it was always fun.
I was going to say, realizing also this show had gone through so much with the first unaired pilot, and then they
Yes.
do the second pilot. Then they find out it gets picked up. This was really that first episode where they realize, like, this show is going to go. So do
Yeah.
you remember the mood on the set for that episode? Were people excited, or were they nervous, or what
Well,
was it like?
There was a great excitement, because there's always nerves. It's like before a big game. I
Yeah.
think an athlete always has the butterflies. I believe actors, myself certainly, there's always that live audience is there, and that's certainly something different than what you get in a single camera show.
Right.
There is performance time. Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Curtains going up. It's time. Here we go. And so everyone was excited because it had been such a good week too. After going through 2 pilots and the
Right.
recasting and revamping,
Yeah.
and here it's going to be a little bit different now. Everyone was like, okay, now we've got our direction. Here we go.
Right.
And it was like you couldn't wait to get going. And we knew, like, the table reads were so good. It's the show started there. The actors all made their choices early, and you could come in. The writers, the scripts came to the stage, so well written and so complete. I mean, had never been on a show with as little rewriting had gone on than this show, because it was just sharp. It was smart. They knew what they wanted. The characters were clearly defined.
Yeah.
The actors then knew how to play it. And so for me, it was like, okay, let's take that energy of what we have at a table read and keep it going, so we can make sure that the run through, the physicality, is just as funny as the hearing of the written word. And then the next day, how do we make that even better? And then let's keep this going on camera. Is there a camera trick? Is there something different we want to do? And just try and keep that ramp going all the way up to the audience. And
Yeah.
there was a huge excitement going into it, and not a relief, but a huge swell of pride at the end of the show. I mean, the curtain call at the end was like, wow, the people get it. And
Yeah.
it happened that year. Then later in the year, once the show got on the air, you saw people in the audience coming in lab coats,
Right.
coming with penny shirts, coming with picture. I'd never seen that on a show. These people, whether they were nerds or not,
Not on Yes Dear? You didn't
we
get that?
No, we didn't get that. But man, did we have? Was that neat to see? 'Cause
Yeah.
people loved it.
Oh,
So
listen, I credit this show with giving me so much joy in my career and what it's allowed me to do. And it wouldn't be that way if it wasn't for these fans that have truly made it their own. You know?
It really has. And people, not to go off on a tangent
Yeah.
here, but I do remember when the show started and before it was on the air, and you read some reviews. Oh, it's about nerds.
Yeah.
And that's not going to appeal. You know, that's such a small segment. And what really did it to me, that I knew the show was going to be bigger than what people thought, was it had been on maybe 3 or 4 episodes. And I was at my daughter's softball practice, and the coach came up to me and said, "Are you the director of The Big Bang Theory?" And this is the last guy in the world I would thought would be interested in watching this show. And I was like, "Yeah, how do you know?" And he goes, "I watched it, my kids said," and he goes, "I love that show." He goes, "That is so fun. I can relate." And what it was is he could relate, because anybody can relate to what these guys are going through. Any male can relate to, I can't ask. You don't have to be a nerd to have trouble asking a girl out, or to be tongue-tied in front of a girl, or how to act in front of them, or to put on airs the way Wallowitz does, or whatever you do. And that's when I really realized, wow, this has a much broader appeal than what people think it was going to only appeal to nerds and science people.
Yes, 1,000%. And one of those reasons that made it so appealing was the character of Penny, because when Penny was rewritten from the first pilot into the second pilot, and then as we get to know her in the second episode, she really was the voice of the audience. That's what was so interesting to watch, how she was so protective of them. But there is a scene coming up, and let's play it, because it's so great. So let's just play it, and we'll talk about it.
Hey, guys.
Oh, hey, Penny, this just arrived. We just brought this up. Just now.
Great. Was it hard getting up the stairs?
No.
No?
No.
No.
I just love their interaction. Jim and Johnny.
They were so good together. You know, I mean, the 2 brothers, you know, joined at the hip, really, the way they played off of each other. And then Kaylee was actually the 3rd brother, you know, was really the yin and yang of what they were, comedy was. And some of the my favorite scenes were when you got into later years. It was like, oh, we're going to do a scene with just Kaylee and Jim, or just you know, Johnny and Mayim. And sometimes people who weren't always naturally written to be together and stuff. And it was always interesting to see this little dynamic unfold that wasn't there very often. But in the beginning, she was such a pleasure to work with, and having a little bit of a history with her. I knew her comedic beats, and she's such a hard worker, but she makes it look effortless. Some people have to break down the script and study it and do this, and she seemed to be just going with the flow, yet every note that was given, that I gave, she took. And it was like, I wouldn't necessarily see it the next, in rehearsal, but at the run through, it was always there. It was, anything that, it was never forgotten. It was like, no, I hear you. You're right. This will make this better. I have to do this. And that's why I loved, for a coach of a team, it's like, oh, let that wide receiver do what they want to do. Yeah, they know what they're doing. We'll get them the ball, and she's not going to drop it. She's going to take it and run with it.
But also, I really think it was doing a deep dive for the book and really studying what you did on this show to see what a coach you also were to these actors, and they will say the same thing about how you help their performances improve because you're able to just, you have a different eye and you can see things about how this might play funnier, or this might make a scene more, like you said, the 10%, rule, or whatever it is.
I've always felt as a director, that's really kind of what you want to do is if the words that there are on the page, you don't want to ruin it. No. You don't want to drag it down. You don't want to belabor it. And how can I make this a little bit funnier? And I've always thought visually, which is why I was attracted to the medium, as opposed to writing. I used to like to write and sell jokes and do that, but that was a grind for me. But visually, I could picture things automatic, from the page. It's like, oh, I see what they're going for. Oh, I know what we can do. We can put him behind over here. That'll make it even funnier. And that's what I love doing. In this cast, we're all fairly young. And not green, I wouldn't say,
Right.
but as far as working together as an ensemble, I don't think they had really had that much experience, and they were a pleasure to work with. And that's what I try to do, is guide them. And the very first, they used to celebrate when the pilot got picked up. I know they all went out and celebrated. When we did our first, we got a pickup for the back 9. They all went out and celebrated. When we got the pickup for year 2, they all went out and celebrated. And the thing I remember telling them was at the end of the first year, we went out and celebrated, and they were having a great time. This is great. Next year, I'm going to buy a car. I'm going to do this. I'm going to. It's so exciting. I love doing this work. And I said, all right, I want you to remember this moment right now on how much you're enjoying this and how much you like this work, because I go, in about 6-7 years, when you start coming in and complaining about, oh, do we have to work today? Oh, can't we just go home? Oh, do we have to do this? I'm going to bring this moment up. And they were like, okay. And I did.
I was going to say, I'm sure you did at some point.
Yeah,
have to
years
bring it
later,
up.
it was like, do we have to rehearse on this day? It's like, yeah. We do, because that's what got us here.
Right, exactly.
That's what got us. Your work got us years 4, 5, 6, and 7. you
Right.
know. Put in the work, and we'll coast at the end.
Yes.
Okay. They all love to work so much. I always try to keep things fun. I always, you're trying to do a comedy. I never understood directors that yelled and screamed
Right.
and made it a grind.
Yeah.
When you're trying to be light, and it's why I always bring a ping pong table onto shows that I go to, just to get people to bond and get a chance to meet other people that they wouldn't necessarily meet.
Exactly.
And get out a little aggression, and get off a little energy, and just keep it light that way.
Yeah, and it worked.
Which they all loved.
It worked. One of the other scenes, I really did love this episode. It's truly one of my favorites. I love in the middle of the night when Sheldon is in Penny's apartment cleaning it up, because that's so Sheldon, and it's like, again, another perfect, like, this is exactly what he'd be doing. You've got Leonard, who wakes up and is not sure what is going on, and he takes out the lightsaber.
Yes.
And I just thought that was so great. What do you remember about that scene at the time?
Well, a couple of things. It was always funny at the run through to have the lightsaber, come around the corner, because you couldn't have a more perfect character prop for these guys.
Right.
And the way he's holding it, and what he's going to do if there's a burglar out there.
Yes.
But when you finally saw it when it was lit, when it was completely dark, and you see that glow come out from the stick and him come around the corner, it was priceless. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
And the audience, and again, you could play that laugh of him just walking down the hallway, taking his time,
Right.
looking into the kitchen, and just playing that, letting the audience roll with it was great.
Do you remember working with Johnny for that, and in trying to find like angles of how best to play it off?
It was things like that. I said, all right, primarily you're going to come, I'm going to be shooting up the gut here.
Okay.
We want to maximize, but it's like, he knew the stance.
Okay.
Okay. He knew the fighter stance.
Yes.
These guys, they all had a little nerd in them, so with him, like I say, him coming around the corner,
Right.
it was a Jedi. It was not just someone who had picked up a lightsaber.
Right.
He was a Jedi trying to protect his turf.
Yes.
And just the little thing of coming out, even though the front door is open and he would have seen that, it was like, no, come out. We're not going to see the door yet. So go ahead. You're going to take a look in that kitchen just to make sure no one's around the corner, and then you'll step down, and then we can notice the door.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of working out that timing and
Yeah.
stuff. One of the funny things which I do remember from the audience too, with Jim cleaning, the end of the scene, like the second take.
Okay.
I think he just keeps going. And like Johnny says, I'll walk out, or he says
Right.
he's going to
In the middle of the night,
In the middle
when
of the night.
Penny's
middle
still
of the night.
sleeping. Okay.
And he's cleaning, and Johnny's like, I'll be right back. And he steps out. And when I told Johnny, don't go back in, I just want to see how long Jim goes. And we did,
How
normally
long did he go?
He went a minute. Something that was supposed to be 5 seconds
Right.
of him folding another sweater
Right.
or something. I kept Johnny out. I said, stay out. And it was just a little joke to keep things light.
Right.
And Jim just kept going. He kept folding. Then he looked for something else. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to start cleaning in the kitchen. And then he started looking. He's like, I've got nothing else here. better go upstage and find something. And he would have kept going. If I wouldn't have yelled cut finally, he would have kept going.
What did Jim say when you finally
It was
yelled
funny.
cut?
He just
Was he like, what the heck?
He
What
was
took
like,
you so long?
He was like, are we that short on the show? I mean, come on, you know? But it was fun. It was just a nice release, and the audience got it and realized what we were doing. It was fun to do.
Oh, I love that.
Always little jokes on one another.
Yeah. Well, I was also going to ask too, when Penny finds out what Sheldon has been up to and she gets quite angry at him, how did you work, if you remember, with Kaylee on that scene? Because there is this push and pull of how angry can she get, but to what point does she have to pull back? So do you remember working with her on that?
Yeah, a little bit. What's interesting, because you can always, with her, if you watch her face tells so much of the story. And that's really where it comes. You having her yell off camera, and you know how angry she comes in and busts into that room.
Yeah.
And as she goes, however mad, we could take her up to a level, but it would just be a matter of saying, look, you can't kill him. You want to kill him.
Right.
You can't kill him. And she would, got it. And she could just, you could break that with just a little of a look, a smile, an eyebrow raise, or a little head nod, or a little intake of breath. And it was something that, it was like, once we nailed it, was like, great, lock that in. That's what we need to do. And we try, you try different things.
Different ones,
and that's the beauty of, like I say, them willing to work in the rehearsal process instead of just coming in, doing it, okay, let's move on.
Right.
You get to work it and say, well, try it this way. Go angrier. Go 110%, in the anger. And you might discover something that
so true.
you didn't think would be there at all. And so that's and which they love to do. Let's rehearse it. Yeah, let's try it again, And they were always one. Something I always do with actors is always, hey, if you ever want another one, if you ever want to try it again, let me know, because I'm always willing to do that. You always want to give them a chance just to play and to try something that maybe they were thinking about and never tried during the rehearsal process. And it's like, sure, let's discover it. Let's just discover it together,
Let's play another scene because I want you to react to it. And again, it's one of my favorites. So let's play it and then we'll talk.
What?
I am truly sorry for what happened last night. I take full responsibility. And I hope that it won't color your opinion of Leonard, who is not only a wonderful guy, but also, I hear, a gentle and thorough lover.
Okay,
that look right there.
Oh my God. I mean, listeners need to go to Max and watch this scene again to see Johnny's reaction, or Leonard's reaction, I should say, to Sheldon saying he's a gentle and thorough lover, because it's so perfect.
Right.
What do you remember about that scene? And was it in that moment, or was it in another moment, that episode, that you were like, we are nailing this?
Oh, geez. I think that whole episode, when you hear those laughs, when actors have to wait out laughs that long, you're nailing it, and they get it, and they are behind these characters 100%. And that's an example of Sheldon is so clearly defined. That's the way he speaks with humans. There's no guard there. Doesn't matter if it's a female, male, older, whatever. That's the way he thinks they have to be spoken to, and that's the way he talks.
Right.
And Johnny was always great to bring it a little out of that reality, his own reality. Because if you notice some of the things he does, is he's so great with the way he's always pushing his glasses up, and his body language and his attentiveness and the quirkiness of the physicality that he does, which is great.
Yeah.
Because it's very unique to that character. And even though in reality she could see him across the hallway, we shot it so the audience could see him, we could see him on camera, but you would, as a viewer, you wouldn't know that she could see him.
Right.
And so you could get those reactions, he's listening, and that's just a matter of him playing a moment for real.
Yeah. But like Johnny in that moment could have like just stood there and put his hand over his eyes or like kind of like pretended to bang his head on the door. But it was the way that his whole body just collapses.
Yeah.
And that's what made it so good.
Yeah. And again, the physicality of it and just seeing him deflate is the way it does it. And to sit right on our little box there that was on the side of the couch, which we use many times for seats and for little things like that.
Yep.
It was a nice little set dressing that we used extensively.
We also see in this episode Penny hugging Raj.
Yes.
And what then happens is Raj demonstrates to Howard how Penny hugged him. And the two embrace in what became this traditional bromance between the two. And again, it's the physicality of the way that they do it. So how much did you work with Simon and Kunal to create that very comfortable friendship that I think really did start in this episode?
Yeah.
Because they have that, and you always were wondering, like, something more going on, but they were so comfortable with each other.
This was their first show together.
Yeah,
basically. In a way.
Yeah.
So there, like, that is just, the writing there is all right, you just have to commit. If you play it real, that's what you are going to get. That's where you're going to find the comedy.
Right.
And so Kunal, this is how he did it. And that moment, and it was just Simon making sure he doesn't go too quick and just let him feel it, and then fall into the embrace on his side and picturing what he was picturing, whether that was a girl or Penny or whoever.
Right.
And even though it's Raj, it's just committing to it 100%, which they would do. And it was a matter of, don't be too quick. Don't be, let it breathe. Let the audience dictate. And that was often a note that I had to give, was let the audience dictate the speed of this, because they're going to go, and they're going to go. You're used to a laugh that we've been getting all week. It could be a lot bigger with the audience. So don't rush. Don't jump it, play it out. We can always tighten it later in editing and stuff, but don't rush this moment.
Right.
So, and that was one of them.
There's so many moments throughout the series that I can't imagine how you had to keep it together based on the audience's reaction, because
it's really fun. I know one time when it got really popular, this was oftentimes like season 8, 9 or whatever.
Right.
You had to be careful because sometimes the audience was too hyped up.
Yes.
And you'd get the first line out of Jim's mouth, not a joke, just saying, "Hey, where's the butter?" People laughing because, "Oh, Sheldon, I can't wait to see what he does." And you'd see Jim look and go, "What's going on? What is that?" We just go, "All right, let's stop and just tell the audience, okay, take it easy, take a breath.
Yeah.
I know we're excited to be here, but listen.
Right.
Listen to the words. Don't just automatically jump in and laughing at every single thing." And because that would throw them sometimes more than a not a good audience, which is rare. Which is really rare.
Maybe Mark Sweet had one of the toughest jobs. He was the audience warm-up guy to have to deal with all of the, because you have to really keep them together for hours, but also have that energy. It's not an easy job.
Very tough job.
Exactly. Okay. So, you kind of mentioned this too in the very beginning when we were talking about different reactions with the furniture up the stairs and maybe running into a wall. But at the end, before the tag, Leonard walks smack into his apartment door after Penny hugs him. And again, I just thought that was so funny. Was that always on the page, or was that something you guys worked out in rehearsal?
You know what? That's a good question. In watching it, I honestly am not sure, but I would hazard to guess that we worked that out because of the throwing that extra glance back, and instead of just playing it on his face, of throwing that extra glance, which allows him to walk into the door.
Right.
And I have a feeling. I mean, I don't see them writing that necessarily in the script. As he looks back, he accidentally walks into the door.
Exactly.
It was something that we may have found in the rehearsal process, or looking at maybe at first it was leaving the door open and he misses the door. He catches part of it or whatever.
Right.
And so, but that would be something I think I I would like to give credit to him. You know, it's like we found that in the rehearsal process
together. I was going to ask you too, at the very end, the tag, when all of the guys are in Penny's apartment trying to scientifically, in a way, figure out the furniture. And Penny is meanwhile over there just putting it together herself and stuff. And they all manage to walk out of the apartment without looking at her to see what she's done, to say like, okay, we'll meet you back here at like 4 o'clock and we'll do this.
I'm going here. I got to get this. You go to the garbage dump, you get the metal, and we'll meet back here.
Exactly. And they all leave, and then she looks around, and her place is pretty clean for once, and she says, okay, this place does look pretty good. Was that how the episode was always meant to end, on that line, or did you guys play around?
No, I think that line, it was like, things are going to be okay here. It kind of sums up the relationship's going to be okay, even though they've just walked out. And like I say, the funniest is her line, hey, I'm taking my clothes off now. I'm taking all my clothes off, and they don't move. And they're just staring at the plans, trying to figure out what's next. Because to me, it was like it sums up the relationships here.
Yes, exactly.
These guys, what they're like and what she's like. And then, but how they mesh, how they get along.
Yeah.
So
it's such a perfect episode. It truly, truly is. I think it's my favorite one the entire season, because it's just the physicality, the writing, all of it.
It was a great start. It was a great springboard to start a run of shows.
To your 244 plus episodes. All right, you ready to play a game?
Sure. Quiz game?
Quiz game.
Okay. Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay. What is Sheldon's middle name?
Oh, boy. Sheldon's middle name. I
Mark
don't know.
Cendrowski.
I don't know.
Oh, Mark. Mark. Not on the first question.
First question. I wasn't ready for a quiz.
Do you want a letter? Would a letter
begin
help?
with an M?
No.
No. I don't know what it is.
Lee.
Oh, okay.
Where did Sheldon meet Amy?
They met, and it was in a coffee shop off the blind date of the end of the episode in the tag.
Yes. It's a dating site, which technically
Kunal,
Howard and Raj found
had
her on a
put
dating
his
site.
information in for a blind date.
Yes, but they met at the coffee shop. Okay, good. What state did Penny live in before moving to Pasadena?
Nebraska.
Good job. What school did Howard attend?
MIT.
Well done. What is the breed of Raj's dog?
Shih Tzu? Cockapoo? It's a little...
Close. A little dog.
A little brown.
Yeah,
furry.
And it changed too. It wasn't the same dog that it eventually was. They got a different dog, but it says a
Yorkie. Oh, it's a Yorkie.
It says Yorkshire Terrier.
Yeah, it was a Yorkie.
Yeah.
Yorkie.
Yeah. Okay, I'll give that to you. What movie character is prominently featured on Sheldon's desk?
On Sheldon's desk?
Uh-huh.
What was it? I remember the Batman cookie jar was a big thing.
Yeah.
Movie star or character. It was a character.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the little Spock, because that was a specific episode that we did.
Yeah.
Boy, that's
it's from a movie.
Trying to picture his desk.
It's hard. I know it's been a long time.
I would only do it for, like I say, specific episodes. We always change things. I don't know. Who is it?
It's Gollum.
Oh, okay.
It's all right. What drink does Sheldon offer friends when they are upset?
Hot beverage, a warm beverage.
Yes, very good. And finally, can you spell Koothrappali?
Oh, that's a good question. KOOTHRAPPOLI. Close. No. Not even close.
No, it's KOOTHRAPPALI.
2 P's.
Yes. And I don't know if you remember this story, but it's because during one of my Glamour interviews, I asked Milaro if he could spell Koothrappali. And he said, what happens if I don't? And I decided to say to him, if you can't spell it, because he said, of course I know how to spell it. And I was like, yeah, of course. And I said, but if you can't, I said, I want a cameo. I want to walk on roll on the show. And he goes, no. And then he goes, okay, fine. He goes, I'm going to get it anyway. It's fine. Anyway, he didn't spell it right. He got it wrong. And then in the series finale, the first part of the series finale, I had my walk-on role as a journalist in the episode you direct. You technically were my director.
You, yes.
You directed me.
Yeah.
I remember that outside of Sheldon and Amy's building after they just won the Nobel. And
all the press, all the media that were gathered
and I was one of those. You were my director.
Yeah. I remember that.
Was I good and attentive?
Oh my God,
Thank
you
you.
were great. Made the episode.
I mean,
So-
can you leave me like a Yelp review now or
Sure,
something and stuff like that?
I can do that.
Okay. All right. Well done. I look forward to having you back in season 2.
Thanks.
For another
this
episode
is
of
great.
the
Thank you.
podcast.
This was a blast.
Well, you were a blast, so thank you.
Well, good.
This podcast was produced by Warner Brothers Unscripted Television in partnership with Max.